All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and get started. I appreciate you guys tuning in. We're live streaming on YouTube as well. So appreciate anybody who's watching on there. Excited about today's panel. We have a lot of members and high school coaches that, have reached out and are interested in making that jump from coaching high school to college. And so we thought we'd put together a panel of coaches who are, I'm excited about it because I think all three of our panelists are at different stages of their career and their lives. And all of them have kind of gone back and forth between the college and high school level. So I think they'll be able to, share some unique perspective on kind of what's, what they've done, what's worked for them, and so on and so forth. So if you guys could mute your mics, the way that we're going to do it, I'm going to ask a few questions just to kind of get started, but we want to make this interactive as much as possible. So if you guys do have questions, feel free to raise your hand or type them in the chat or type your name in the chat, and we'll kind of pass the mic to you and let you run there. I think I'm having a little internet issues, so my video is cutting in and out, so I apologize for that, but just bear with us. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and introduce the panelists to get started. First and foremost, we got Herald Rayford. Harold's the head coach at Tennessee Prep and has built that program basically from scratch and has done a tremendous job turning that into one of the premier, post-grad and high school programs in the country. So Harold, appreciate you being here, man. Right up the road, good friend of mine. Jody Bailey is the assistant coach at New Orleans, and Jody had a long career that we'll get to in a second. We're going to start with Jody, so I'll come right back to him. And then Evan Wyllie is the graduate assistant at University of West Florida, and Evan was started in the state of Illinois as a high school coach, and got to know him really well. I was coaching at Southeast Missouri, right down the road from him. So appreciate you guys being here. Jody, I said I'd start with you, man.
Yes.
You played small college ball, and then worked as a student assistant at Louisville. And then after college, you took a high school job in Alabama, right? So how did you already had some relationships
Correct.
established from your time at Louisville. How did you kind of, maintain those relationships? You know how it is. Sometimes, like people do, as messed up as it is in our industry, people kind of pigeonhole you and judge you by your logo. So how did you kind of avoid that, when you made that, that transition to high school?
Well, I started as a manager.
Jody, are you there?
I played a couple years in the ball, like you mentioned, and then I started as a manager. Started as a manager there with Coach Crum at Louisville. And from there, I got hired at a school in Montgomery, Alabama to be a head coach at Calvary Christian Academy in 1995.
Daddy, why can't we eat?
And can you hear me, Adam?
Yeah, we got you. Yep. Keep going. You're doing great.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay.
Jody, you there?
And then from, I had a fantastic, yes, sir. Can you hear me? Should have it on.
Yeah, we got you.
Here we go. Is that good?
Jody, you want me to come
Good.
back to you? I can hear you just fine.
Sorry.
Yeah,
So I was a
you're
head
good. Go
coach in
ahead. Keep
Alabama.
going.
Okay. Sorry. I was a head coach in Alabama, and in 1995, 1996, and we went all the way to the Alabama State 2A championship game my very first year out of high school there. And we had a spectacular year. And then from there, I made a few jumps throughout my career. And then I came back and a few years later in 2002 to be the head coach at Eagles Landing Christian Academy in McDonough, Georgia. And I was there 2002. So throughout, when you talked about contacts, going through that of your question, you know, to make that jump, it was constantly trying your best to meet people, shake hands, work camps. And in those times, those day and age, what we did was we went to camps at the universities and you worked relationships there. You got to shake hands. You try to meet as many people as you could through those camps. Nowadays, it's through AAU ball where a lot of coaches are making their contacts.
Gotcha. Any strategy? I mean, were you just kind of being a good person that you are and just, you know, staying in touch, or did you have any specific things that you did to try to stand out above the crowd?
Yeah, you know, you just have to stay with it. I think the number one thing is persistence. And I think that throughout, if what your dream and your goal is, you have to stay pushing forward. You're constantly doing that. And you got to have some help along the way. And some help along the way is from people through contacts and through whoever it may be that allows to open up a new opportunity for you, a phone call, a letter, a handshake, and you have to be able to constantly put yourself forward, and you never know what may happen. But I get it because, you know, my father was a head high school coach for over 35 years in Kentucky. And so, and he was in Louisville, Kentucky. And so I've coached high school ball, and I get it when how things are with high schools and practices and things like that. And to make a jump throughout my career through that, I'm very thankful for my time to be a head coach in 2 different states in high school.
Yeah, it's great. Hey, Harold, I want to go to you next. You started tell us a little bit about your background. You started at the AAU level, JUCO level, before you got that opportunity to break into the Division I at Norfolk State. You know, talk about how you kind of like manage that and kind of, we know each other, so I know you're from New York and you project that confidence and that all that stuff. So, I mean, did that go into like, you know, your ability to make that jump?
Well, you know, when I first got started, it was because of my dad. You know, my dad having an AAU program for over 25 years. I got my start with my father a long, long time ago. And he gave me a shot at coaching at the AAU level in 2002. And at that time, you know, not really knowing what I really wanted to do, but give back to the youth. And actually got plugged in right away, utilizing the network of AAU, like Coach Bailey said a little earlier. And my player development where I'm from was growing rapidly. So, you know, one of my father's contacts landed me a player development job with the New York Knicks, where I was traveling down to Madison Square Garden, you know, quite often to prove myself. But where I am currently is pretty unique. I became a head coach in 2009 with no college coaching experience at all at Ulster County Community College. And from there, you know, 10 years prior, Coach Evans, Anthony Evans, who's at Fordham University currently, is a really close mentor of mine. He's very influential in giving me knowledge and, you know, the tools. So 10 years prior, he put Ulster County Community College on the map. And we met through a mutual mentor, Jackie Knowles, back then. And it was just a connection. And from there, I've learned a lot about basketball at Norfolk State with no assistant coaching experience, no college coaching experience. And when I went down, you know, Coach Evans threw me under the wing. He one of his first things he's ever said to me was, Coach Rayford, when you come to my program, come in my program and treat my program as if it's yours. And I just took those tools, and of course, you know, looking back and going to these meetings with Coach Evans, I would just sit back and just take notes on, you know, the different philosophies and the different things to help catapult where I wanted to go in my career as a coach, because in that young stage, I'm not really understanding what type of coach I really wanted to be. Was it academics? Was it the, you know, recruiting? And he just worked with me early on. And the bottom line is where I am right now, you know, as a testament to Coach Evans throwing me under his wing and teaching me about the game of basketball. To now, you know, following him down to FIU. I was down there for a short stint. And again, it's more about the teaching, where I'm still learning, where now, you know, shortly after is my big bang. My big bang was now stepping down from FIU, going to the prep level to develop Concord Prep. And through the years, of course, I'm really big on networking, going to networking, you know, seminars and being a part of coaching organizations like Rising Coaches. Just plugged away and, you know, continue to build a network of, you know, coaches that could call in and help along the way. And did I go too far, Adam?
No, you're doing great. Keep going.
I just want to make sure, you know, I'm touching on some key points. But I'm a part of about 5 different coaching organizations where it's all about the teaching. For me, I'm big on skill development. I picked up a lot of skill development from Coach Evans at Norfolk State. I'm also big on, you know, relationships. You know, when I go out and recruit, it's all about the relationships I cultivated since I first got started. So.
Yeah, it's great. I appreciate it. Evan, let's bring you on, man. Tell us a little bit. I think your deal's a little unique as well. And I don't want to speak for you, but like it seemed like Coach Rayford and Jody made that jump early in their life. Sometimes it's easier to do that, but you kind of made the jump a little later. You just made the jump this past year. So tell us a little bit about your like, you know, getting into it and how you transitioned.
Well, I tell people all the time, I'm probably the oldest graduate assistant in the country. But, you know, I got my start actually at my old high school, which is Dwight, Illinois, which is a small town in central Illinois, just south of Chicago, about an hour and a half. And I was an assistant there for 3 years right out of college. And then, you know, we had a lot of success there. You know, we won about 60 games in 3 years. So we had a lot of success there. And, you know, probably the biggest help for me was the head coach there. His name's Eric Long, and he's kind of been my mentor ever since. And he just kind of helped me understand, you know, how to run a practice and kind of prepare me to be a head coach. And, you know, coming out of college, that was kind of my goal, was to be, you know, just a varsity high school coach. And, you know, I was a physical education teacher at the time. And so that was just kind of initially my goal. But then, you know, I became a head coach at a pretty young age. I was 25 when I got my first head coaching job at NCOE High School, which is in Norris City in southeastern Illinois, which is about an hour west of Evansville, Indiana. So my first year there, we won the league first year, and we had a pretty good team. And, you know, I was there an extra couple of years after that. And then I took a job 2 years ago at West Frankfort High School, which is also in Southern Illinois. And, you know, we won the regional there. We won 21 games. It was the most success the school had in about 10 years. So we had a really good season. And then that just kind of, you know, it was a tougher league and things like that. So But I've been trying to get into college coaching probably the last, up until this year, probably about the last 3 years or so. So, I mean, I, spent a lot of time, writing a lot of letters and a lot of emails and going and watch a lot of practices at area schools. John A. Logan was really close. USI, Southern Indiana's right down the road. SEMO went and watched practice, Southern Illinois, Carbondale, University of Illinois. So just tried to get out and meet as many people as possible, and things like that. So that's just kind of how it began for me. But, going into it, I really didn't know necessarily what the process was. I just thought, it's just like, you just send in your resume and you get an interview and that's it. But that's not necessarily the case. So it was funny when I was trying to get the graduate assistant job at SEMO, and you would have been there at the time, and you guys ended up, hiring a different person. But I told Tom Berryman, who's the Dobo, I'm like, well, if you guys need help with basketball camp, just call me and, I'll be willing to help out and this and that. So sure enough, he called me back about a month later and ended up coming over to Cape and working camp that week. And, that's how I met you and the rest of the staff there. And you guys gave me some great advice. And that's just kind of how I really kind of started to, kind of really, really work at, trying to get into college basketball. So kind of the insights that you guys had and all that stuff has really helped me out, and you have a better understanding, from the business side of things. So.
Thanks, Evan. Hey, we got a question here, and make sure you guys keep these questions coming, because that's what we want to do, is make us interactive. Reem, I'm going to go ahead and hand it to you and let you ask it.
Coach Harold, how are you? Good. So your expectations going into Ulster, obviously I coach right now in similar situations. What were your expectations going into Ulster as a head coach? And then when you got there, what are some major adjustments that you had to do or had to kind of figure out while working there?
Right. So at Ulster, back. Can you hear me?
Yeah, a little choppy, but go ahead.
Okay. I'm sorry. I was a former student at Ulster Community College. That's where I played my JUCO basketball.
With my own money.
So my intentions were to continue to build what I saw Evans do 10 years prior. So it was pretty much, lay a foundation, get the local community involved. Camps going on at the time, where I have, other cities outside of, Stone Ridge. I have, Newburgh, Kipsey, Middletown. I have those those students at the time come to the gym. And what I wanted to do was just lay a foundation where the community will embrace what I was trying to do at Ulster Community College, which was, put that program on the map, be able to bring college coaches, Division I, Division II into practice to recruit the guys. But my ultimate goal when I was at Ulster Community College was to win Region 15 championship and bring in guys that could play in Region 15 in that New York City region, which was pretty tough.
How do you guys this is for any of you guys, whoever wants to answer it, or all three. How do you get guys to notice what you're doing? You hear this phrase, make the big time where you're at. So you do the best job at the school you're at right now, whatever. But there's a lot of coaches out there. How do you get people to see what it is that you're doing and allow them to project that you could be doing the same thing for their staff?
I think you have to go through it, Adam. You have to be in your mindset that it's the long game and it's not the short game. And you have to be great at having persistence. And you have to also be willing to take a no and take a hit, and you have to accept a no before you can get the yes.
How do you have that persistence?
A lot of it's faith, a lot of it's hope, a lot of it is belief in yourself that you're going to continue to push forward on your dream. A lot of it is your backbone of this is who I am, this is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to make it.
Harold, what about you, man? Any thoughts on that? Like I've heard you talk about, we talked about it the other day, like once people come into your gym, you're running things a certain way to make sure that they get a certain impression from it.
Right. So for me, you know, the mentality going into it, you know, when you think you're working hard, I always keep in the back of my mind that somebody else is working harder. So just getting out, you know, making phone calls, making connections with, you know, community that wants an opportunity, or, you know, or young men at the time, because, you know, when you at a junior college that doesn't offer, you know, scholarships or the other, you know, meal plan, housing, you know, you got to work hard, but you got to work extra hard to put the program on the map. And I just wanted to have an atmosphere that was excited for coaches to come in, players to come in, like, man, I got a chance to be a part of this program. They're actually teaching the game, showing us the game but the mentality going in is when you're working hard, somebody else is working harder. So that's why I just kept pushing through, you know, every step, every level that I was at, was just keeping that in the back of my mind.
Harold, I've been to your place, like you run it like a college program at Tennessee Prep. Do you think like that leaves a mark on people when they come?
Absolutely. I mean,
that intentional?
The ultimate goal for me right now is continue to work with the athlete and making them better. So in order for me to make them better and get to the levels where they want to go, I have to put a model in place as if they want to go to, you know, a West Florida or New Orleans. You know, that's the ultimate goal for me, is to make sure coaches want to continue to come back knowing that the player is being taught the game of basketball the right way.
Yeah, I love it. Hey, Evan, you did some things too that was unique. You kind of touched on it, like trying to build those relationships and going to practices. I thought the other thing that you did that was really unique that I think helped you get that spot at West Florida was working those like JUCO tournaments, right? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. You know, for me, like when I wasn't coaching at, you know, big powerhouse high schools where we got, you know, dudes running around or anything like that. So, you know, I always tried to find ways to kind of get myself out there and things like that. So just to touch on your question, last year, I was the Region 24 tournament director at Wren Lake College. And, you know, Kyle Smith Peters is the president of that. And he asked me if I'd be interested because he kind of knew what I was trying to do, like what my goals were and things like that. So,
Can you tell us real quick what Region 24 is and like why that matters?
Well, I mean, A, it was close to where I lived, and B, it's really good basketball. I mean,
it's
you
like
got
JUCO, really good JUCO.
Yeah.
People are coming in to recruit that tournament.
Yeah, you know, I mean, I think that first day, you know, you got 4 games that first day, and there's over 54-year coaches there. And, you know, and you got some, you know, as high as Power 5 all the way down to, you know, a small NAIA school. So it was a really good opportunity for me just to kind of, you know, shake hands and, you know, introduce myself and things like that. So, but I kind of did some prior work before I even did that, because that prior October is usually about the time where I kind of started, you know, writing rounds of letters and kind of doing research of like schools that, you know, I'd possibly be interested in working at. And, you know, back when I first went to the Rising Coaches Conference and all that stuff, you know, seemed like the trend was, you know, to be a Division II graduate assistant was probably the quickest way to, you know, get a lot of experience in a lot of different areas. So that was kind of the level that I targeted. So one thing I looked at was the top 25 rankings from the year before. And, you know, when I asked my wife, when I was trying to look into this thing, where she would be willing to go. And she said, somewhere warm. I'm like, okay, well, you know, the Ferris states and the Minnesota states, you know, those are out, you know, so we, you know, West Florida happened to be one of those teams. I think they finished 13th in the nation that year in the final poll. And so I wrote Coach Burkhammer a letter, who's now my boss. And he actually sent me an email back after I wrote him the letter. And he said, you know, I normally hire former players, but hit me up in the spring. You know, you never know, you know, what can happen. So I saw his cell phone number at the foot of the email, and so I just kind of kept that for myself. But the first day I was working the Region 24 tournament, Coach Burkhammer was one of the first guys to walk through the door that day. So kind of got a little bit lucky, I guess, but just because I had done that, you know, writing that one letter, and, you know, I was able to go up and introduce myself. And he actually remembered who I was, because, you know, he gets a ton of emails every day, but I don't know how many handwritten letters he gets. So he remembered me, and he was there for 2 days, and pretty much, and, you know, back to Jody's point about being persistent. Well, just about every halftime of every game, and, you know, in between games, you know, I'd be over there talking to him because I knew he was probably my best chance. So, you know, him and I just kind of talked over the course of those 2 days, and, you know, a few months after that, you know, we kind of stayed in contact, and, you know, he just wasn't sure what was going to happen because they were still focused on recruiting and things. So, but he called me at the end of June and invited me down to visit, and, you know, he offered me the job when I visited, and my wife and I moved 2 weeks later. So we've been here since last July.
Yeah, it's awesome. Ben, you had a question? Go ahead.
Yeah, it seems like networking's key, but in terms of like being able to skill development or booster your resume or cover letter, what kind of intangible things did you guys do or have advice to really separate yourself in terms of breaking in, if that makes sense?
Take it, Harold. I see you on the front of your seat. Go for it.
I think the biggest thing, you know, if you want to break in, if you want to, you know, use those terms, is to plug in with someone that knows basketball, that can teach you the game of basketball, but also join, you know, basketball organizations that can help, you know, get you in. You know, there's tons of people that would love to be mentors and help you along the way. And I just think, you know, attaching yourself to a mentor or somebody that's willing to bring you underneath their umbrella is key.
Absolutely.
Jody, do you and Evan want to expound on that?
Sure. You know, my very first coaching job, I was coaching 3rd and 4th and 5th and 6th graders when I was 21 years old. And then a few years later, I got that head coaching job when I was 23. I was a 23-year-old head high school coach going all the way to the Alabama State Championship game. But when you ask that about, okay, how do you get in? You're going to have to be willing to do some things that are different. So I left that job in Alabama and I took an NAI job in Indiana, and I made $250 for the entire year. When I did that, so I'll go through it real fast. I got my master's. I worked the graveyard shift at UPS, and I coached college basketball, and I made $250 the entire year. So a few years later, when I made it really big, and I got to be a Division II assistant coach at Kentucky Wesleyan in Owensboro, Kentucky, we won a national championship. And I made it really big. I made $3,000 for the entire year. So, you know, how much willing are you going to, when you talk about sacrifice, when you talk about fighting through and doing some things, that stuff is real. And it's real that you have to sit there and go, okay, for me to make this jump, for me to make this journey, I've got to make some decisions. And I need to take a volunteer job. I need to be a GA. before all the other stuff, before you can even get a t-shirt. And you have to be willing for that. And then to go ahead and finish it, you have to separate yourself that you're kind of different from somebody. You can't just be the guy that's just going to pass out cones. And then I'm the guy that does the cone drill, and we do dribble between your legs, behind the back, and you're that guy. Well, you got to have to bring something more to the table than just be the cone dribbler guy. You're going to have to be a whole lot different. You got to add something, got to add value to it more than just that.
Thanks, Coach. Appreciate that.
And then, kind of to go off, what Jody said, I mean, really similar situation, especially to guys who, may be married or, have a serious girlfriend or things like that. A big part of it is, that your significant other being on board with what you're trying to do. I mean, luckily for me, my wife was supportive of me and what I was trying to do and things like that. So, I left, a teacher salary and insurance and, all that stuff to kind of make this move. And, you got to be willing to kind of, sacrifice some things and, maybe you're not going out to eat as much or things like that. So, I mean, you got to kind of think about those things. And then obviously how hard are you willing to work and really kind of put your head down and just keep moving forward. I can remember when I was, working camp at SEMO, I was the only other high school coach there. And I knew what I was trying to do and things like that and just try to get noticed, any sort of way I could. So, one thing I focused on, during that week of camp was, try to be doing something all the time. And it could be something really little, kind of like, when the lunch break's going on and there's basketballs laying all over the place, I'd walk around and pick up all the basketballs or, if there's trash on the floor, pick up the trash, just little things like that, that may have gotten noticed and maybe not, but, doing the little things when, maybe, eyes are on you and you don't know it, you know what I mean? So the biggest thing is just to, just kind of being persistent, working hard and just kind of staying focused on whatever your goal may be.
Would you guys agree that, like, because Ben kind of mentioned like cover letter and resume, would you guys agree that like that stuff, it's going to come down to a relationship regardless of what's on the or do you think there are some things that you can do on paper to help your cause?
Oh, absolutely. Adam, I want to be able to share my screen. I want to share my screen. I'm trying to click the buttons. And get it
Go
done.
for it.
Okay. There's an acronym that, I took from some of the students lately, and the word drip, on paper, this is what I suggest that, inspiring coaches want to do, is definitely discover what kind of coach you want to be. Discover it. Then you want to research what kind of coach you want to be. If you want to be, a recruiter, skill development, whatever, you particularly want to do, is do your research on it and then implement it. And then go after it, pursue it. I think, you can do this first before, actually plugging in, because you don't want to go, into something blinded without any research. And I just think, if you guys that are aspiring to make a jump or get there, discover, do your research, implement, and then pursue it.
Yeah, it's big time. Appreciate you sharing that.
Absolutely.
Thanks, coaches.
We had a question from Tim. Go ahead, Tim.
How y'all doing this morning or the afternoon? But my question is about how you guys embrace the uncomfortable, making it comfortable, and then how did you use those situations might have been want to shake that coach's hand that you might have not thought was going to notice you, or sending that text message to an unknown person. How have those moments prepared you to have those tough situations with kids, to talk about it, to get them to trust you and help grow through those situations?
Don't be shy.
Well, here's the thing. You never know who somebody knows. And you never know who that person may have in their phone that you don't have in your phone. So by you shaking your hand, you don't know what happens, but you've all of a sudden, you just made a connection with somebody brand new, which could open up a door for you, yourself, or whomever down the road. And they may not be able to help you currently, but as you stay persistent with just staying in touch, staying in contact with people, you never know what can happen. And that's why you constantly do that stuff. One of the things that, so going back to my career, I was coaching NAIA ball in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and we had a really good player, and he was fabulous. And so I had a friend of mine who I contacted and said, hey, I need to get this kid playing professional ball, to have him play professionally overseas somewhere, maybe even to get a chance to play NBA ball. Kid was really good. He was special. So I contacted one guy who told me to contact this guy, and that guy was the head of NBA scouting. His name was Marty Blake. Marty came to an NAIA basketball game. This is the director of NBA scouting, and he came to an NAIA game, and my kid went off, and then came a couple weeks later to another NAIA game, and my player went off again. We stayed in contact, and I'm left that NAIA job to go coach high school ball in Atlanta, Georgia, and Marty Blake stayed in contact with me, and I started going to the Portsmouth Invitational camps. I started going to the NBA draft camps. I would drive all the way to Chicago to work the NBA draft camps. I would drive to Portsmouth, Virginia to work those camps. And lo and behold, a few years later, I got hired to be an NBA scout. So that's how some things happen. You just got to stay persistent, stay constant with talking to people, because you never know who they know.
And Tim, you know, to answer your question, I take it back to when, you know, growing up, when somebody tells you no if you selling a bar of candy. Can't get no worse than that. I mean, you're asking this person a certain question. If they blow you off, so what? Just keep plugging away, because eventually somebody's going to buy that, you know, chocolate bar, or, you know, just keep plugging away. If somebody says no, and it's one thing that, you know, I definitely want to leave you with is, you know, a quote by Tony Dungy. You can't always control your circumstance. You can always control your attitude, your approach, and your response. Because even if somebody says no, your attitude going into it, you know, your approach to it, and your response is all key, because it may be just a test. Let me see if this young man's gonna, you know, to fly away, or, you know, and again, just being persistent too, with continue to network, you know. But that quote by Tony Dungy, you know, you can control your attitude, you can control your approach, and you also can control your response, you know, as you're going out there to network.
And probably one of the, you know, the biggest thing for me, you know, kind of my philosophy is sometimes, you know, less is more. You know, you talk about, you know, being friends with, you know, guys in the business and things like that, you know, for me, you know, trying to stay up with 100 people is really, really hard. But, you know, you might have that small circle of players, or coaches that you may know, that you're really tight with. And, you know, kind of like what Jody said, you just never know what can happen with your close friends. So, you know, it's important to kind of build that trust with a smaller group, I feel like, just to kind of, you know, continue to build that type of relationship with a smaller group versus, you know, you know, having not a very significant relationship with, 100 people. So, I mean, in my opinion, less is more.
What's up, Evan and Jody? I got a question for you guys, or I got a question for Evan. Evan, obviously we talk a lot, man. About your experiences, obviously you could have went Division I level as a GA, you could have went Division II NAI. Talk about why you chose Division II GA and what you've kind of been able to gain from that to help you in your coaching career, especially because you do recruiting, you do on the floor, like obviously at Division I level, that stuff. So why does that help you?
Alex, my man. Yeah, so just, the biggest thing for me kind of going into it was, being at the age that I am, because I'm 32 years old. So, I wanted to try and get as much in a short amount of time as possible. So, when I kind of started looking into it, the Division I level, yeah, that always sounds great, whether you're a player or a coach or things like that. But I just didn't think, it was necessarily the best fit for me. So, where I'm at now, I just get to do so many different things. I get to recruit. I do all our video. I do all our practice film. I get to coach on the floor. In practice, I help develop the guards in practice. I handle all our travel stuff, all our meals, just doing all those different things that, whether a, assistant coach might be able to do, or director of ops or video coordinator. So I'm essentially, 3 titles all rolled into one. So that's just kind of the reason I kind of pursued this level and things like that. So it's been really good. And, obviously, the first year was a learning experience just because I didn't have, some experience in a few of those areas, but, you're kind of almost thrown into the fire, so you kind of got to be able to learn on the fly. But luckily enough, I'm with a great staff, and, they're able to kind of help me if I don't necessarily have the answer. So it always helps when you're with a good experienced staff and that are willing to help you and, support you and trust what you're doing.
Do you guys here? Let me start with Harold on this one. How do you, but I want to hear all your guys' opinion on this. How do you guys go about like networking? And I hate that term because it comes off as fake. And that's exactly like my question. Like, how do you go about like building relationships without coming off like you're trying to get something from the person or coming off as fake and make a lasting impression? And then my second question is like, how do you promote what you're doing without self-promoting?
That's tough questions. What I want to do is share my screen again, because I made a huge transition where I am now, from coaching Division I basketball to now being at a prep school level. And I agree with Evan in reference to, keeping your circle small, but also in the business where we're in, you got to continue to, network. Hold on one second. Because when you're dealing with, players and hold on, can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is a big transition for me, going from college to prep high school. I'm at a place now where I can win games while learning how to coach, manage, and develop my craft and style as a coach. So in 2014, when I made this jump to Concord Prep in Charlotte, North Carolina, dealing with players, Donovan Fields, Jaquan Jones, Lukeman Lundy, Christopher Tui, Jalen Jackson, Eric McCullum. You got to get out and pick up the phone. You got to plug away and get after it, in reference to networking. Plenty of times, I email coaches, whether it was on Facebook, Instagram, any social media platform, email, text, call, just to get these particular young men in situations where they are now. And, just doing whatever it took, sun up to sundown. Some days I used to wake up at 4 a.m. to make calls, text messages, emails, just making sure that everything is on point to get the athlete that I'm developing that I know can play at the next level, just give them an opportunity. So this was a big transition for me. And I just wanted, to be able to share how important networking is, especially at this level, because God forbid, if I lose my job today, I have a list of players that, have other players that I can get in contact with it. And, this is networking. And I just don't want to use it as just players to get in the business, but developing that player for the right situation is important. And that's why, again, networking is important. And right where I'm at now, based on networking, since I've been here at Tennessee Prep, 2-time national championships, my first guy here, 2015, 2016, won the NACA national championship. Rob Johnson, who's currently at the Skill Factory down in Atlanta, Georgia, comes right, underneath the umbrella where, we constantly go back and forth where he's helping me, I'm helping him. All these young men that are in these 2 pictures here, all, scholarship players, and it's all about networking and, pushing the door down. So, Adam, that's, a part of, networking for me, is giving my guys opportunity to play at the next level, but develop it as we go.
I love it. Appreciate it. Jody, Evan, you guys got anything?
Jody, if you want to go ahead.
Thanks, Evan. I think Harold's right on what he said, but I also think that, in the end, if you're real and genuine, that's the people that you want to be around. You want to be around people that are real and genuine. People that are phony and fraud, they don't like people that are real and genuine. And people that are real and genuine don't like people that are phony or fraud. But in this business, you have to decipher people. You have to figure them out. And you have to figure out if they're true, if they're real. And if they're not, then you have to go out at a different game plan. You mentioned something, Adam, how do you self-promote without not promoting yourself? That's extremely hard to do. It's extremely hard to do in this business because you have to put your name out there, but then you also have to be humble. And that's what's so hard, because you're constantly in a self-promoting type of world. There's things that you have to sit back and be cautious about. And then there's times when you do have to step forward and say, okay, I have done some things and here's what I've done. And when the time is right, then it happens. But I think going back to it, I think it's all about timing. It's truly all about timing. I would have never, the things that I've gotten to do, think about it, guys. I'm a head high school coach in Atlanta, Georgia, and I leave that job to go be an NBA scout. And because of that NBA scout job, then I got hired on at the Air Force Academy. Then I got hired on at the University of Colorado. Those kind of crazy jumps just don't happen. A lot of it's about timing, and a lot of it's about patience, and a lot of it is staying true to who you are. And then in the end, when it comes time to self-promote, sure, you have to do those things, and you have to be prepared with everything.
And I think another big thing is don't try to be like anybody else. I mean, sure, you can kind of model your philosophy and of certain other people, but at the end of the day, you just got to be true to yourself and understand what you want. And a lot of people will see that, you know what I mean? So, I mean, the biggest thing is just kind of have your own style and identity and just kind of build yourself up and run with it that way.
Hey, Adam, can I follow up with that?
Yeah, please. Go
Yeah. So what are you guys' takes on social media? I definitely think it's needed. And Jody, I want to start with you first, because I think you're a little bit older. What is your take on social media and trying to not only promote your program, but promote yourself for the long-term vision?
Well, okay. I think social media is a great platform, and it's all about with whatever you're trying to put out. I've seen people that they're taking a picture of their toes in their sand, or they're taking pictures of the biscuits that they made for breakfast. You know, whatever you're putting out is great. I mean, and it's terrific, and a lot of it is fun, but also then it becomes, okay, for yourself, what is your brand? For yourself, who are you? And I think you've got to figure out that piece of your own self. If you are a man-to-man defensive guy and you're wanting to put stuff out there about man-to-man defense, that's great. If that's who you are, stay true to who you are. If you're a zone defensive guy, do that. That's fine too. There's nothing wrong with that. And then however you're going to promote it with regards to social media, then you put it out there. I try to think in terms of my faith in Jesus Christ. I try to put that out there for myself. And then secondly, I try to put my family out there as much as possible with my children. And then when it comes down to basketball, I put out some things that are out there for basketball. So I think that each to his own, and whoever puts things out, I enjoy it. I love social media. I think it's fun. I think it's fun to watch, and then you learn a lot. You learn about people and about who they are. And I think, Kareem, you got to go about it the right way so that you get noticed with what you do.
Harold, Evan, you guys got any thoughts on social media? And you guys don't all have to answer this question, so it's all good if you don't.
I mean, I wouldn't say that I necessarily like self-promote myself per se, but anything that I think is, worth sharing or retweeting or liking and stuff like that, I'll usually do it, especially if it, can positively reflect, myself or our basketball program here, things like that. But I mean, you gotta be careful, just because, a lot of people have different opinions about certain things and stuff like that. So, I mean, you kind of got to be careful with what you're doing and obviously think about what you're doing before you click something.
Right. So Coach Bailey, I think you hit on something huge in reference to your brand, and social media platform provides that platform for guys like myself and my school, where, for me personally, is promoting God, family, basketball, and particularly, just being able to let the athlete know, or the people that, are watching you, know that knowing what you're doing. And I think just, continue to develop the brand off of social media is important, to give some insight on, what you may be doing, whether it's daily that you post, weekly, monthly, just so people can, see that, you have something positive going on where they may want to be a part of it. And that's, again, for me, is real. I'm in a unique situation at Tennessee Prep because I have to recruit, just like you guys, but I have to recruit guys that I can develop, but also put up. And the platform for social media is super important, because not everybody's on, Twitter, not everybody's on Instagram, not everybody's on Facebook. But if you touching all those platforms and you putting out positive stuff on, your brand of, I think it'll be helpful, for your future.
Any other questions from anybody? Harold, you touched on something earlier when you were going through your PowerPoint about how being at the high school level is giving you an unbelievable opportunity to get hands-on experience and better yourself as a coach. You guys talk about like taking advantage of that opportunity and what a blessing it is to be at that level at sometimes. So you do have that freedom to kind of find yourself as a coach.
Right. So again, just want to share my slide. It's been a lot of hard work working here at Tennessee Prep. The pay isn't all that great, but my heart is in the right place to help, my athletes get to the next level. These are some of the, guys, since I've been here since 2015, I have over 170 athletes playing scholarship basketball. And that's going, from the time I was at Concord Prep to now being here in 6 years, well over 170. And you look at these guys, I mean, it's so important. It's so important. It's just so important, Adam. I mean, I just looking at some of these names through the years, and I'm like, man, the development, going into it, the networking that going into it, just it's put me in a great place where I can teach these guys how to play college basketball, but also enjoy it. I would say about 80% of these guys on this list here have never watched a college game. Just being able to show them the right thing and do the right thing. So when it's their time to make that jump, they're right on point with the transition, because I'm at a level where I can teach, right from wrong. And so that when they get to that program, when they do wrong, they know there's consequences behind it. So just wanted to, share that list with everybody, because even though I'm on this platform, Adam, I want to take the time out to also network with other coaches who I don't know that may have an opportunity for guys that I have in my camp now. And again, it's about the development, just knowing that a lot of coaching is going into it. The breakdown of our day is similar to college, where we wake up in the morning, strength and conditioning, we have skill development, afternoons, and then we have team practice at night. Your average high school coach only gets 2 hours in the gym. And for me, I have to break down the course of the day so my athlete is prepared for the next level. And I can honestly say every last athlete that's on that list has been coached very, very hard with the understanding that the college game is not easy. So it's given me a chance to have, make mistakes, learning, because I know when I get to the level where, Coach Bailey is and, Coach Wiley, I don't want to make any mistakes, but at this level, I can make mistakes here and there on the court where it's translatable, in the future.
Any other questions or for our guys? I kind of want to give you guys each an opportunity. If you do have questions, go ahead and blurt them out or raise your hand or whatever, and we'll get to you. But I want to give each of you guys an opportunity to kind of give some parting advice or wisdom or something that's helped you along the way. Why don't we start with Jody? Sorry to put you in the spot, Coach.
Yeah, you like to do that, Adam. I think we're on this call because this is what we love. And I think to do what we do, I think there's three things that you have to do with regards to coaching. You have to love, you have to serve, you have to care. You better be able to love what you do. You got to be able to serve your athletes. You got to be able to care for them. You got to do it in everything that you do. Love, serve, care. So I would tell you, any of you, I'm a GA, video coordinator, director of ops, D2, NAI, JUCO, D3, high school, prep school. You got to be able to love, serve, and care for your athletes and for the people around you. And if you're not in this game for anything other than that, then it's a challenge. But if that's one thing I can tell you guys with that, it's a rewarding profession. It takes you places that you'll never go if you weren't in coaching. And the places I've been and the things I've seen and the people I've met, it's all through an orange basketball. And only God could orchestrate that. So, I thank you, Adam, for allowing me to be on this today. And it was really nice to get to listen to Evan and Harold and also the questions. That was fantastic. So hopefully I answered that for you.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
For me, when I was at the high school level, the biggest thing was, you really learn about yourself as a head coach. You kind of build your philosophy and you take some lumps early. You got to learn fast and on the fly, and you just kind of gain your own experience. You get to do all the scouts, you get to run practice, all the drills, video breakdown, all that stuff. And the biggest thing is just to basically just kind of take ownership of where you're at that time. And don't necessarily always be looking for that next job. Just always try and do the best job you possibly can where you're at, and good things will happen. I truly believe that, and that's kind of what led me to here. And I already finished 1 year and got one more year to go, and obviously I'll be looking after this year, but that's a long ways out. We gotta win some games this fall. So that's just kind of the mentality I think that's most important, is just kind of stay focused in on where you're at, and just kind of keep working, and and good things will happen.
Thanks, Evan. Coach Rayford, last but not least.
Yes. So what I want to leave everybody with, because we're on a virtual call, is never stop investing in yourself. Continue to plug away. Okay, come on. Never stop investing in yourself. These are some of the organizations that I am a part of and pretty active. Of course, Rising Coaches. Thank you, Adam, for putting this thing together. I think this is awesome. Part of NABC, being out of Tennessee, part of the BCAT. I'm from New York, so I always want to make sure, I plug in and keep up with B Canny. And most recent, my wife is from Texas, so I love Texas basketball, and I just, joined that organization as well, but also have my gold license with USA Basketball. But just continue to invest in yourself. All these organizations have, great clinics. It's a lot of great coaches. Coaching the world is very competitive, but never stop investing in yourself. Just keep pushing, no matter what the circumstance is, whether you're making $2,000, in your coaching job to $100,000. Just continue to invest in yourself and keep pushing. This thing is real. This is truly a business. And one thing about business, you want to make sure, you're associated with the right people and the right philosophies.
Great stuff. Appreciate you, Harold. Appreciate all three of you guys, Jody, Harold, Evan, for being here with us and sharing that knowledge with us. So I appreciate all you guys tuning in. We try to always provide development and relationships and community with Rising Coaches, and appreciate you guys filling up all three buckets. So thanks everyone for tuning in and being here today.
Thank you.
Thanks, Adam.
Appreciate it, fellas.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thanks, coaches.
Excellent.